international maritime jurisdiction. It used to be called the Ancient Code of Kings. It's been updated to called Uniform Commercial Code as the Law of the High Seas and Admiralty and Jurisdiction, right? And so all nations are codified under Uniform Commercial Code. And the only thing that the Uniform Commercial Code can codify is a legal fiction, right? And the legal fiction, if you are a member of the legal fiction, you have to be a straw man in order to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm. To even play in any of these, you gotta be dead.
Right. Now, in order to bring back the living system is based upon husia, authoritative utterance and exceptional insight. The hua is the authoritative utterance, the voice, the ability to speak a thing into existence. You speak it into existence by being in a position of right and telling the truth, and it has to happen. Because Big Mama said so. What's the part about the single mothers not wanting what?
Oh, dang. Single mothers not wanting to get off of, you see that part. That was a whole different question, by the way, but he was saying what single mothers not wanting to get off child support, food stamps, so on and so forth. He said he wants you to talk about what's the reasoning behind that.
Look, that's because they don't know no better. But when we get our shit back, ain't nobody gonna be on child support. The child gonna be with the parent, if the parent's not together, that is most capable of meeting the necessary needs of the mental, emotional, physical, and economic development of the child. In other words, the parent that can be the greatest benefit to the child is the parent that the child will be put with. And this will be done by the evaluation of the family members, the women in the family as the mothers, and the men in the family as the fathers. So if you're a piece of shit father, the men in your family gonna whoop your ass and you ain't gonna be able to see your son.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a good father, the women gonna back you up, and then the men gonna back you up because the women back you. Most loved, most respected in this scenario, right? The most respectable parent with the strongest moral compass under matriarchy is the parent responsible for the children. Now, here's the part that a lot of the brothers ain't gonna like. If your child have a sibling that's older or younger than your child, and when you do stuff for your child, you do something for the other children so that the other children doesn't establish a mutiny in the family to your child. So a guy was going over a video yesterday. This guy brought McDonald's only for his child, and the girl got 4 other kids.
I saw that shit.
Now look, this is serious because he's fundamentally right. But if he was really understanding child psychological development, he was doing his child more harm than good by leaving his siblings out. Because when he get McDonald's, how do they feel watching their brother with McDonald's and they don't have anything to eat yet? Because they deadbeat ass dad ain't coming around. It's about your child psychological development. Any one of my children that got a sibling, that's my child too. Because I can't go pick up and hug my daughter and she's 5 and she's got a 4 or 3-year-old sister that I'm like, that's not my child.
That's wild.
Because when she get older, she's going to resent my child for the relationship that my child have with me that she don't have with her father. So it's a better healing salve to the community to meet the psychological need of any child that you approach, whether yours or not. Then that's why I say take a village to raise a child. That shit's serious. You don't want to breed seeds of dissent in the sibling relationship. Because you're not responsible for the other children doesn't mean it's not negatively affecting your child. When you do something for your child and totally neglect the other children, right? if you want to take your child out to eat and you can't afford to feed the rest of the children, you're supposed to get that time with your child where it's you and them, and you don't have nobody else with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you can give them whatever you want them to have. And then when you take them back, send him home with little bags of candy bars for his siblings or something simple, so that when your child seeing you brings the same amount of joy to his siblings that he coming to see you, right, as it does to your child. I'm going to see my daddy. Oh, every time you go see your daddy, he send us something back.
Right.
We love your daddy. I
Mm-hmm.
wish my daddy wasn't a bum. Kids talk like that,
They do.
you know. But those relationships that as a child, it seems so innocent that this is my child, I'm taking care of my child. It seems so innocent when he's doing his part for his child and leaving the other children out, but it's doing more damage to his child than he can possibly see. Because if you got the only kid in the house with new shit on, the rest of the kids bummy, dirty because their daddy ain't around and their mama can't afford to buy them nothing, right?
Right.
What you think they gonna do to your child? They gonna call him bougie, say he uppity, and he think he better than everybody else, and then they gonna treat him like shit. So I feel like if it's my son and his brother is at home, and I'm going to take my son shopping, and I'm not bringing him to my house, I'm gonna get something for his brother, even if it's one thing. He's gonna get something, but it's not because I'm kissing the lady ass or I'm kissing her other child's ass. It's that my son's relationship with his sibling is more important to me than my money.
Mm.
And a
That's
lot of
hard.
people don't understand that.
Nah, yeah, I was gonna say that's the first time I've heard somebody come from that perspective, and it opens my eyes because the reason why I laughed when you brought it up is like she was clearly in my eyes, she was clearly in the wrong because he was saying like, look, I'll take my son out to the car. You ain't got to eat in front of everybody. I get it. I get her standpoint of like, don't feed them in front of everybody else and not bring them food. But she wouldn't even
Right.
let them come out to the car, so I was like, yeah, she really in the wrong.
She
But
she
your
okay
perspective
now
there,
it's fundamentally she's wrong. But when it comes to the welfare of the collective children, she's right.
mm-hmm,
Right. That man only laid up with her for one baby. He didn't lay with her for all of them. But the goodness in his heart, if he understands his child and what's best for his child, he's gonna do it anyway. Now he might start off like that, and then it's gonna be something creep up inside him saying, "Now you can't do that shit," without her saying nothing.
mm,
It's going to come up unless he don't have a conscience. And then if he don't got a conscience, it's not gonna matter anyway what she say,
right,
because everybody don't got a conscience.
not at all. I'm gonna take like 3, 4 more questions. Uh,
So what happened to the Georgia Guidestones? From the view that it looked like to me, it got hit with an energy pulse weapon. Now, the reason I say that is because when the explosion went off, it wasn't a fire combustion, right? It's supposed to have been a small mushroom cloud if it was a fuel based explosive, which common explosives is gunpowder, nitroglycerin, and fertilizer fuel. It was none of those used because it would have left a fireball when it blew up. There was no fire. No fireball came from the explosion, which tells me whatever it was more like a accelerator, an energy accelerator weapon than it was a fiery explosive weapon.
mm,
So being that it's an energy weapon, it's two places that the weaponry can come from. The U.S. military has energy weapons that they confiscated from extraterrestrial crafts that's crashed. They know how to use them. And the Galactic Council has energy weapons that, if the system isn't moving according to how it's supposed to, they can use those energy weapons to fuck all kind of shit up. They cut off HARP in 2018. HARP was shut down by Donald Trump.
Mm.
So this is how, and then Joe Biden's administration never put HARP back online because they
So,
got too many other issues.
so HARP has been down the last 3 years. There hasn't been any weather manipulation.
If it is, it's coming from the Galactic Council and not from the Earth.
Mm. I mean, maybe outside of the chemtrails, because I still be seeing them.
Well, some of that is cleanup now.
Mm.
They got to clean this shit up before they give it back to us from a lot of shit. Poisoning the people and all that shit. They got to clean that shit up. GMOs, hormone laced feed that turn little girls into puberty at 8 and 7 years old and shit. All that shit got to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the beef is the worst food stock. You're not supposed to use beef for food stock.
Mm.
You're supposed to use bison, elk, shit like that. You're not supposed to use domestic cattle. Domestic cows is used for what you call the byproduct. The milk, the cheese, the cottage
Mm-hmm.
cheese,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then you use the urine for different stuff. You use, when they die, you use a pelt to make leathers and stuff, but it's not for human consumption because it's saturated fat,
Mm.
right? Bison don't have saturated fat. When you go back and look at one of their plans to destroy us was to kill off
Yep,
all of the
all the
bison.
bisons. Mm-hmm.
And then they replaced them with bovine beef that's
Right.
not native to the land.
Mm-hmm.
Now, um, this ain't concrete, but what I believe is that all of the cows in America are going to be rounded up and shipped back to India where they belong, where they sacred animals at.
They are shutting down a lot of cow farms.
Yep. That's because they was filling them up with all types of hormones that disrupt the development of our kids, our children.
That's a good one. It
The
says, can you
alpha and the
ask
what?
Rod to explain the alpha and omega? That's it.
Alpha is the beginning. Omega is the end. And is the little omega, which comes from um, the aim, which is the alpha in the omega, right? So the saying or the quote is, as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. At the
Mm-hmm.
close of every cycle, we have to restore it back or reset back to original. When you reset back to original, you go from omega back to alpha, but it's in reverse. It's from alpha to omega, as how it's, but it's really from omega to alpha, from the end to the beginning, because we
Because you're
already
going
went
from
from
the end
alpha
to
to
the
omega.
mm,
Right.
going back.
Yeah. So you got to look back to see forward. It's just the code to say that everything has to be reset in the end like it was in the beginning. For the most part, we just getting critical awareness to the collective, but for the most part, except for the low level minions, right? For the most part, they gone. All of the big wigs, most of the Enlil family then turned tail and left.
That's why all them CEOs was resigning.
Yep. Well, that ain't the only ones resigning. Yeah, a lot of people don't know about senators and congressmen all over the country is
Mm-hmm.
stepping down because they're saying there's not going to be no more elections. The
Mm.
only way there's no more elections is if we return back to selections, natural selections specifically. Most loved, most respected is the rule. The
Mm-hmm.
one most qualified for the position has to take the lead until he's no longer qualified, and then a qualified person will step up and take it from there. That's the structure.
That's smooth. So that's how chiefs. I can't say ordained, but that's how chiefs came to power back in the day. Is through
So
natural
let's talk
selection.
about Chiefs for a minute because somebody asked a question earlier and I didn't really answer it. You don't become a chief um, just because you said you're the chief. You got to be the head of a family, and you got to have the love and respect of other chiefs, right? The more chiefs you influence, the higher your rank becomes. We talk about, and all chiefs aren't men. This is the hard part for a lot of people to understand because the patriarchs told us that the chiefs was only men, but it was probably more women chiefs than it were men chiefs.
So,
They become family administrators, appointing people to positions in the family that they can be most useful to the family. And as is following that same rule, the one who knows takes the lead in that area,
mm,
right? So let's say, for instance, in our family, we had dog fighters. I would take the lead because I know more about dogs than anybody in my family,
mm-hmm,
right? And let's say we got another part of the family that bend metal. I'm not taking the lead because I'm not a smith,
mm-hmm,
right? All of the smiths worked with metals, smelters. You got goldsmiths, blacksmiths. It's all telling you the metals and the materials they work with, right? You
mm-hmm,
got jewel smiths. They were the ones who cut the diamonds, rubies, and sapphires. We didn't hold in high esteem crowns of gold. We held nature's adornment in higher esteem than the fabrication of the hands of man. This is
mm-hmm,
why we wore feathers,
mm-hmm.
because the beauty in some of the feathers, like we don't have as many exotic giant birds as we used to have that we used to collect the feathers from because they killed them all.
Mm.
Just so we wouldn't have them to make elaborate headdresses, right?
Right.
So we believed in the turquoise stone's power and the crystal's power, and they believed in adorning their gold crowns with diamonds and shit, sapphires and rubies. They all got alchemical properties, but they was doing it for the
The look.
cosmetic allure.
Mm-hmm,
So when they came over here, our opulence was simple to them,
mm,
right? Because they seen us in deer skins and bison skins with moccasins on and feathered headdress. Our culture holds nature in a higher esteem than the invader. The invader holds in highest esteem the things that man can fabricate with his hands.
mm.
And that's the major difference in how you can tell them from us. Because the simple things we have gratitude for. But if you don't give them big gifts, they have no gratitude.
Mm,
We can trade fruit basket for a basket of scented pine cones and be just as content. They don't want that shit. That's trash to them. If there's no gold and jewelry involved, you're a peasant to them, right? So they look down on us, but we looked up to Big Mama. We didn't look up to men,
what did
right?
Kanye say? They made us hate ourselves and love they wealth.
Yep. Messages in the music.
Mm-hmm. Damn, that's wild.
It's possible power plants can run out of diesel fuel for the backup engines to add extra power to the production. Never know.
Right.
But the biblical seminarians know they lying to the people, and in order to get they preaching certification, they just go along with the lie.
That's what we do.
Go along to get along. So if you continuously go along with the lie, you can't liberate nobody or free nobody mind because you live in a lie.
But I'm gonna say this, Rod, just like I've said when the times when Grand Sheik has made this like sort of like blanket statement about all preachers already know, and all preachers do not know because
I agree,
all preachers don't go to seminary. All preachers, and if they
right?
do, like me, they may go to a college that has a specific evangelistic focus, and is not even in comparative religion. They're always putting Christianity up as this is the example, and anything other than is an abomination. So they basically, when they do comparative religion, it's not to give you an opportunity to see that there are other sources of information that are historical and factual that this stuff is based on. Most preachers sit in churches and have sat and listened to preachers from the pulpit, got pulled into believing that they were called to do the same thing that preacher or bishop or whoever was doing, and then they get to do it, and they do it from their heart. It is later on when they get into the inner workings of what goes on behind closed doors in the back room, and the conversations and the humanity and lack of divinity of those men and women of the so-called club. It is then that they see the hypocrisy, and I'm speaking from experience, then that you see the hypocrisy of what's really going on, and you got to question whether any of this ish was true, because they're just out there doing this thing, but they're living a whole different lifestyle. So in defense of the ones who went in with their heart and soul in it, and didn't know that it was what it is, then I'm saying all don't know. But what I do have a problem with those who, once you find out, that they continue to perpetuate that.
Well, one of the things about those who go through the seminary that know, and those who come in as they call those hands-on preachers. They was taught hands-on by somebody in the church that helped them to learn how to basically run the church.
Mhm.
Those are not as responsible as the ones who go read it in its original language, understand that it don't say what they telling you to say.
Absolutely.
um, it's a writing by Khalil Gibran called John the Madman that expresses the sentiment of you telling these people lies. I'm gonna tell them what's really in the book, right? There's so much stuff in the Bible that you can use it for any form of manipulation you choose to, if the people don't understand their own spiritual development. It becomes a easy tool of exploitation for those seeking to be wealthy. It's a way to get a whole lot of material gain for well placed lies. They don't have to know they lying when they come in, but at some point the discovery is imminent. You cannot continuously read that Bible and preach, because when you start preaching in front of a group of people, most people don't know this. You start off, you might be a fraud, but you start getting messages. Hey,
Mhm.
stop telling them lies to the people, right? And sometimes the message might come from a 3-year old in the church saying, "Why that preacher lying?" Right? I know when I was 6 years old, I knew they was lying because I asked my mama and got my shoulder ringed off. She wasn't mad at me for saying it. She's mad at me for saying it in church. Mama, why that man up there telling that lie? I was in Grand Rapids. We was living in Grand Rapids at the time, Grand Rapids, Michigan. That was Pastor Abney um, preaching, and he was going over the standard Jesus script. And this was my first time really, really, really listening as a child to somebody tell the Jesus story. He told it exactly how he's taught to teach it. And I immediately said, this man lying as a 6-year old. And it was a blatant outburst. All the church ladies turned around looking at me. And it embarrassed my mama to the point where she pinched me and wrung my shoulder off, got me crying up in the church, talking about you can't be saying that up in here. And then when we got home later on, she talked to me, and then because she did, even if she disciplined us, she still talked to us.
Hmm.
She didn't just discipline us and didn't never give us nothing. She gave us a lot of wisdom, even though she did spare the rod, spoil the child. I don't think she gave me enough ass whoopings. Whereas some of my siblings might feel like they got too many, right? But when I
Where did
look at
you
the,
fall in the? Are you youngest, oldest, middle?
I'm the seventh child, and
Of how many?
it was originally 10 of us. It's 8 of us left.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I'll be number 7. My mama was number 7, and her daddy was number 7.
Okay. Significance.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's what they call a lightning strike. And my grandmama got struck by lightning.
Really? I mean, actually.
Yeah, she was working on the fields of Mississippi down by Macomb, Magnolia, Tylertown area, and the storm came in and she got struck by lightning. That was my mama's mama. My mama said she was. I think my mama was 5 years old when it happened. She never stopped grieving her mother her entire life.
Oh, so she did not survive the lightning strike.
No,
Hmm. Wow.
yeah,
Right.
that's where it ended her. But her spirit was strong in my mama, and it was due. So this goes back to the psychic connections with people. It's from the heart chakra, and it's from the place of pure love. And this is why most people can't never attain psychic abilities, is because their heart is confused with the ways of the world, right? So those with the golden heart can shine the brightest, but they first have to get the charring off from being exposed to the dirt of society. And that's what we working on. That's why we here. That's what our karmic debt in being here is to clear it by following our path of our book of life. You don't know what your book of life is until you get a certain level of awareness and look back on your life, and it's what they call dying while yet living. It's part
Hmm.
of doing shadow work while you're going through the dark night of the soul. So when you look back on your life, you see certain patterns, key names, key figures who's influenced what.
And archetypes. You see certain
Yeah.
archetypes.
So archetype is part of the required study in the priesthood to allow you to understand which aspect of God you're dealing with. The highest aspect of God we call Big Mama. And the next highest aspect of God we call Big Papa. Right? Big Mama feminine, Big Papa masculine, but we call them the old energies, right? So when you hear about them, call them the gods from days of old. It's written in a lot of the texts around the world, but don't nobody know what it means. Because they don't call for help, they can't get none. They calling the wrong names, right? Jesus is spelled Iesous in Greek, right? Using applied grammar, IE becomes fused as I S U cancels out the O and makes the US sound us. So when you pronounce it as a single word, it says ISIS. But the story that it's telling is not the story of ISIS, it's the story of Moses or Horus, right? So the character, the Old Testament was written as a recovery text for the New Testament, meaning the New Testament was written first.
We were told always told in the church and in Bible college that the Old Testament is the new concealed and the New Testament is the old revealed, and that's the way they kind of played it off. But then you
Because they got to give you the right to discover that the Old Testament is written after the New Testament, which turns religion on its head.
And we were also taught that there were 400 silent years between the ending of the old and book of Malachi and the beginning of the new, and that in those 4 years God was silent. What we do know now, those who study, is that those are years of what I guess sort of reconstruction renaissance, which came out, ended up being a renaissance afterward. That was when they were the Piso family and the ones that were um, uh,
So the misunderstanding comes in
the ones
here.
that were writing, like you said, the one to try to make the two in agreement. That 400-year period, they were that nobody could read the so-called Bible because they were putting it together,
Right. But that 400-year period is actually uh, a period where apocryphal books was written.
which they, for the most part, disqualified from that. Like the Gnostic texts, they didn't want us to read the Gnostic texts.
Right. Well, not necessarily. They called the apocryphal books. The
Well, yeah, the
apocryphal
apocryphal
books.
books, and then later on, the Gnostic, anything
Right.
that was
So
written in gnosis knowledge, we weren't supposed to have that. We were just supposed to be leads.
right. So they got several different groups of information that comes from this understanding of missing books of the Bible. First, source material. Because when you source material back, it's a book called Black Gods Who Wrote the Bible. No, Black Africans Who Wrote the Bible, right? Because the Bible was written by Etruscan Moors for the purpose of military conquest, and it was compiled and rewritten, I should say, based off ancient texts in order to control the narrative. And the
True,
controlled narrative is what Rome has been doing the whole time.
true.
When I used to always hear my father say, when you look for the when you say when you look for the troublemaker, all roads lead to Rome. I don't know what he's talking about, but when I followed it religiously, I ended up with the Nicene Council in 325 AD. When I
Right.
followed it back politically, I ended up with something called Plato's Republic. When I followed it back socially, I ran into something called a Greco-Roman Empire. When I ran it back uh, from a athletic perspective, I ended up with the Olympiad. So I always ended up in Rome.
Hmm.
So when I started tracing the dirt doers back, they went straight to Rome. They went to the Nicene Council, 325 and 327. They went back to the ancient um, writer Origin, who was what they call a first century philosopher. They went back to Saint Augustus, another first century writer of Christendom. How can they be first century writers of Christendom when Christendom don't come about into the 300s? So they lying to us automatically.
Then you had the council of, what's it called, Chalcedon, 451, where they
Hmm.
put together the edict of what the Bible was going to be good for. You know what I mean? Um,
Right. So this
Here,
is when they was.
yeah. Can I read that just a little paragraph sentence?
Yep.
It says this council of the Roman Catholic Church, this wise and saving creed, the gift of divine grace, was sufficient for a perfect understanding and establishment of religion. So, for its teaching about the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit is complete, and it sets out the Lord's becoming human to those who faithfully accept it. So, agenda. They created religion. They created the characterizations and the deity of God as a part of what they were doing, and it's in their writings.
Yeah. So it's never been a secret. I was going over the bloody oath of the papacy to murder the kings, princes, and people of the land with young elder. Because they put this stuff in the public domain, but most of us don't know we really seriously is in a spiritual war. In spiritual warfare, you have to fight it spiritually, and the effects is going to trickle down to the physical. If you try to fight it physical first, that's like putting the cart in front of the horse,
Right.
right? You going out the world ass backwards, as my father used to say, right? So, when you put everything in its proper place, don't give it a judgment, and then step back and look at the big picture, right? So they wrote all of the dirt down that they was gonna do before they done it. That's to absolve them from karmic debt before they do the act. Because now, if you agree to follow through with what they said they were going to do, that was your free will being exercised. They just influenced it. That's why they say the devil don't never tell you what to do. He just suggests it to you. It's
Yeah.
just a strong suggestion by a power base that appears to be legitimate. And the appearance of legitimacy is predicated on the paperwork. Because if you don't have the degrees, you should not have the knowledge, right? Which takes me to the next phase of my incarceration, where I thought I was doing all this studying in vain. So here we are, 5, 6 years later, from hearing this lady in the day room in Cook County telling me to get a PhD. And I'm getting headaches from reading so many books so fast, right? And the headaches is to the point where they're annoying to me that I don't want to read no more, right? I don't know nothing about the nutritional burning that the brain is doing. But we go to a Black History celebration, and sister brings in a African dance corps. She was out of Detroit, and she don't know what this lady said when I was in that day room. And she sat there and she said, "Some of y'all gonna get tired. Y'all gonna think y'all doing everything for nothing. Y'all gonna feel like it's a waste of time, and that you doing a whole lot of research and studying in vain because it's not getting you nowhere." She say, "But don't let that deter you. Get your PhD anyway."
So here it was like a divine relay system. One passed the baton to the next to come, and when you needed a recharge, when you were about to, your battery was running down, when your fit your faith in what you were doing was running down, then the Most High, Big Mama, sent in reinforcement to
Right.
reinforce what you've been
So
told.
when I used to get
Let me see.
spiritual
See y'all, they messing with us. Let me see. Let me see if he comes back in, y'all. Okay, let me get him back. Are you there? Can you say something?
Can you hear me now?
Now I hear you. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So can you repeat
So
that
I was
last thing?
saying, yeah, I was saying after the lady said that the second time, I went and talked to my mother on a visit. She had came up that following weekend, and I said, "Mama, the strangest thing happened to me." And I told her the story of the first lady, and I said, "Then last week this lady came in here, or earlier this week the lady came in and said," and I told her the story of the second lady, and my mama said, "That's the Lord talking to you, baby. You need to listen." She said, "But you're gonna hear it from somewhere else. Just pay attention." So I'm on the yard, and I'm talking to a brother who was a recovering addict and alcoholic. And then nobody used to sit and talk with him because he was a recovering addict and an alcoholic. Can you hear me, Dr. G?
Yes.
Okay. Because you froze on my end. That's why I had to ask you.
Oh, okay.
So we was sitting there talking, and he said, "Man, I be trying to tell these young guys around here, man, all this time they got on their hands, they want to play basketball, they want to chase boys, they want to get high in the joint. They need to be in there getting some knowledge with these free books they got, and they got law books They got history books, whatever you want to learn. Then they got an interlibrary loan where you can get any book you need to get. I don't know why they don't just go and get their PhD and stop playing.
Three, the third time.
Yeah, so that's called three master knots, right? The third one came in off of a male father line, who was consumed by vices, right? So it's a vice lord knot. So there's a big mama on the father line giving me a confirmation that the big mama message that came off the mother line that was confirmed by my mother was accurate. I didn't know that when it happened. I put that together years later
Mm-hmm.
because I'm always reflecting on my life and how to be a better person. I keep going over these lessons that I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some of the strangest stuff that happened to me is I would go check a book out in the library, and the book would be so old it don't have an ISBN number, just the title and the author. And I write the title and the author down, read the book, read the book, take the book back, go back because I might have wanted to review something else a month later, and the book not there. So then I go ask the librarian, and he said, "We never had that book, and here's not in our records." That used to, and it happened more than several times where I read a book that didn't exist. So then I started asking myself, where in the hell is these books coming from? That they don't exist no more, right? But now in modern, hindsight 2020, when the knowledge was consumed, it caused the Mandela effect, which switched the timeline. And on the other timeline, the same book doesn't exist. It can't be produced on a different timeline. So every
Wow.
time this is happening, I'm experiencing a subtle Mandela effect, never knowing what I experienced because we didn't have a name for it. It wasn't called the Mandela effect at that time.
True.
We were still studying the butterfly effect.
Yeah. Flap
And
the
the
butterfly
butterfly
flaps
effect,
his wings here and then makes it something happen on the other side of the world because of the flutter of the wing. Yeah.
yep. So he fluttered his wings in Los Angeles as the energy moves back east around the world. By the time it gets to Japan, it's a full-fledged typhoon. Chain reaction, microcosm, macrocosm effect, right? So in the microcosm, macrocosm, as above, so below, as within, so without. If you want to use universal law to affect change in the world, you apply them to the self as the microcosm, and the reaction takes place in the macrocosm of the external world. It just takes time, the bigger the event is, to manifest into the visual spectrum of the others in the 3D realm. Once you learn this, then you understand how doing real time numerology gematria and what we call it number flipping is actually, when you saying it out your mouth, triggering events to take place in the physical world based on what you've seen in real time and what you know from historical record and how you are looking at the problem in order to solve it. So when my mama used to always tell me, don't never let nobody take none of your brothers and sisters stuff, I wasn't even the oldest child. Why would she keep telling me that?
Hmm.
She supposed to be telling my oldest brother and my oldest sister, don't let nobody take your brother and sister stuff. She not supposed to be telling that to number seven. I got six people that got to go through,
Yeah.
right? But I was born on the 10th. That's why I come in on 10, because my siblings exhausted 1 through 9 already. So why am I going to wait and come? No, I got to come in on 10. So I came in 11 10. That's 11, 2 pillars, 10 toes down on the upright. Sacred seal and 68, right? On an
Mhm.
11, on a 10-15 birth, which is the 7th. To the 7th child, it's a knockback. On a perfect alignment of the stars to bring in an old soul that can solve the problems. Anybody can put my birth date in 11:10:68 and put in the time as 10:15 and look at the alignment of the stars
Is
and
that
know
AM or
that
PM?
AM in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But when they look at the stellar alignment, they're gonna know that that's not a normal reading for, because all of the astrologers that was teaching me astrology, how to read the ephemeris, how to look at a star map, how to triangulate the ground from the stars. I'm learning this from astrologers and astronomers that's been
Mm-hmm.
doing it for years. And they keep telling me the same thing. Your alignment is,
You froze up again. Let me see.
can you hear me?
Well, now I hear you. You get froze for a moment, and so you said they
Yep, I
keep
heard
telling
some
you
of
about
you
your
saying it, so
body.
I know where I stopped at. But
Okay.
these people had keep telling me that my alignment is not normal, right? The only thing that's missing from the calculation is the coordinates to Cook County Hospital by longitude and latitude. And then when I'm the only male child living from that batch of sons that was born. And then what my mama went through giving me birth, they tried to murder my mama in the hospital by giving her the wrong blood that was infected with hepatitis.
Oh, wow.
Right? So when my mother finally passed, it was post transplant, post liver transplant, right? And because now I can remember almost everything that went on when I was born in the delivery room. I can remember the conversations that the doctors was having on the other side of the room, but I can't tell that to regular people because it totally sounds fucking insane.
Well, we not regular people,
Because
so you
most
can
people,
tell. You can tell us.
but but most people don't don't remember being born, so they believe nobody can remember. I remember swimming and doing flips in my mama's stomach.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. For some reason you're breaking up. I think I think
Before
I
two or
think
three
I
years old.
listen. I don't know what I don't know if it's my side or your side, but the sound is breaking up. I think you said you remember swimming and then in your mind,
Yeah,
like
I remember swimming in my mama's womb doing flips off her stomach.
what?
I remember like being in utero in amniotic fluid doing backflips using my mother's inner uterus as a springboard.
I believe
And
it.
I remember hearing my mama telling my daddy, "This is gonna be a little badass boy here. He monkey flipping all up and down in my stomach." I can't tell nobody that. That's insanity to the regular people.
Well, for a lot of people, Brother Rod, though I used to say this even when I was still preaching that the there's a scripture that talks about before I formed you in your mother's womb, I knew you and I ordained you a prophet to the nations, and I think it was Jeremiah, and I always told that was just a prototype for everybody who was before they were formed, they were known and they had an assignment that they were supposed to fill. I said, but once you make that decision and say, look, okay, I'm ready, I'm gonna go down, that man, that woman come together, that spark, then I'm gonna inhabit that body that's formed from that. Then I said you float around for maybe 9 months, because I've had preemies, but 9 months in the amniotic fluid, which I would call amnesia juice. I said, and while you in the amnesia juice, you forget what your assignment is, and so your so-called life
That's how I
is
discovered how
one.
to erase our memory.
Right. So your life is one of trying to remember. He said, when you come into your kingdom, remember me, reconnect me to my purpose, to myself. And was it you who said that the lights they throw in your face are like the white that the men in black do?
Right. Now and the werewolf, right?
Mm.
The werewolf are the ones who wore the wolf pelt. So you pull up a picture of the Native American with the wolf pelt
Mm-hmm.
because they was the equivalent of a ninja over here,
Oh,
and
I know what I can
they
fight
will come
like
out
this.
of the darkness of the forest and surround your ass and slaughter you before you ever knew what happened, and you would never get a shot off at one of them.
Mm. You
Wow.
know what? I've been here for the last month or so. I've been watching a lot of stuff on YouTube about wolf sightings in the forest, the out there in like what is it, Yellowstone, all over here in the Appalachian Mountains and all that. I've been watching all that. I'm just been mesmerized by. But they say he never attacks, but you once you see him, it kind of scares you because you never seen them.
They huge too.
Yes, they say they're very huge. They with a dog-like face, and they say they're real muscular.
And now that species of wolf is hard to see.
Mm.
They nocturnal for one, and for two, they can walk upright. You ever
Yes,
see a dog walking on his hind legs?
Hmm.
yes, like
And
that.
and they'll pop up on their hind legs, and I swear they're gonna stand 7 feet tall, and you're gonna shit your pants because you never
Yeah,
seen a
they
dog.
say they stand between like 12 feet tall. Once you see they certain people say I've seen them running, but when they stand up, they stand. You just like what the hell is this?
Those are the spirits of the earth guardians.
Well, I'm ready for them to come on and we need a call on them.
Well, you already doing it if that's your clan. All you got
Mhm.
to do is just want the land cleaned up and agree with three sisters.
Exactly.
And the more people, more the sisters say we want the land cleaned up, the faster this shit gonna work.
Y'all hear that?
Hmm.
Three
We
six
want this
nine,
land
369.
clean.
Exactly what I want.
That
Yep.
is exactly what I want.
But that's the whole point. We got to clean this shit up.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. All
We,
y'all got to do
we
is agree. Yeah. The problem is, this is what our problem been for the whole time them people been here. Under no circumstances will we get on the same page because the people that's behind it look like us and it make us scared of each other.
yes.
You don't think that'll change? I think that'll change though, Rod.
It ain't gonna change till we drag their ass out in the open.
Yep.
You
That's a
got
fact.
frauds out here that's misleading the people, right? Telling them that they can do shit that they can't fucking do, charging them money to do the very thing that they can't fucking get done. Absorbing amounts of money at that.
Yep.
I ain't in this shit for no money. Fuck your money.
Right.
That's
I'll
That's
why
wipe
I
my
said I'm
yeah.
exactly. I'm not in for the money
yeah,
Yep.
excuse my language, but I can wipe my ass with your dollars.
because it ain't worth
I
it.
want my people free, and then I'll be content.
Yep.
Exactly. I'm gonna be my my
That's
energy.
our entire nation. Our whole thing is we talk about it all the time. We're removing ourselves from them. That means you got to remove yourselves from their dollar. All of that. We
Yeah.
got to learn to take care of ourselves again without their freaking fiat fuck. That's what we
Yep.
got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Well,
definitely need our own currency, even though we know we're the currency, but
Yeah.
to do the trading, we will definitely need our own because and we need our gold back. We need our gold back. The
well, they
gold is
never
too
look.
took.
Our gold is still here.
Oh,
They
okay.
not okay. This is what they was allowed to do under the contract. They
Okay.
can borrow against it, but they can't liquidate it. They can't
Mm.
sell it. As long as we continuously contracting them, then they can continue to borrow. Now they down to what we call per diem by the day.
Per
So when
diem.
we get enough people to say fuck a job, take their money out the bank, fuck your system, right? It's a wrap. But the
It's a
problem is,
wrap.
don't nobody want the hard part that come before the ease.
Yeah.
I
That's
walked
the
off my
thing.
job. I walked off my job and didn't look back. Fuck them people. Cause I didn't like the way they was treating my coworkers, and my coworkers was too blind to see that I was trying to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they all ran in the other direction and thought I was crazy.
That's how they treat you once you see, you know. I know the ancestors works because baby, I always once thought I was crazy. I'm the only one. I gotta tell people, I'm the only one been around here. I'm crazy as hell, but I ain't been sick not one time. Everybody else around me been sick. That's why I say, so you keep on with your fake Jesus, and I'm gonna keep on holding on to my ancestors.
These motherfuckers. Yeah,
I'm gonna get you, sucker.
but Kamala put it on the floor. So if that's your opportunity to discover, don't take that shit.
Exactly.
Right? If it was surprising, why did the relief bill, get introduced to Congress a whole year before the outbreak?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That means they had a minimum of a year head start on what was about to happen.
Yes, they did, and they had got out the money that they were going to be giving everybody in 2019. In January of 2019, they already had passed the bill so they could start giving y'all relief funds and all this. All this was already planned. I posted a post of we was going to get hit with this. I'm gonna get you, sucker, and they posted that in 2000 and no, it wasn't. It was 1988. They posted it.
Yeah. But just because they don't tell you where it's at, don't mean they didn't put it out in the open.
Because that's what they call they don't want what they call it
The right of discovery.
yeah, and they don't want what they call when you do something and they don't want it to come back on them. They don't want karma.
Yep.
You know, they don't want karma. So if they ain't gotta directly tell you, all they gotta do is put it out there in the air, and it's up to you because they everything about them is about decoding. If you don't know how to code it, that's your business. So yeah,
Look, inflation. What is that? Where did it come from? How did it get here?
exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
So if you don't know what fractional reserve banking is, you don't understand inflation. If you don't understand inflation, you won't understand why you can't buy with $1 today 1/10 of what you bought with $1 25, 30 years ago.
exactly.
When I was a little boy, I used to go in the store with $2 and get 4 candy bars, a cupcake, and a pop, and still had change.
I remember them days. I definitely remember those days.
Hmm.
Let's see if anybody check out that. So I want to speak on. You was talking about the treaties earlier
Hmm.
and how we got in this mess because a lot of the ones wasn't us. They was hiring. They was having stand-ins to sign these treaties. That's why. Is that why they were so easy to break the treaties because they wasn't signed by the original chief of each.
Yeah.
Um,
So the treaty was never wasn't worth the paper it was written on. The appearance, the appearance of propriety is all they was after.
mm,
It just had to look legit on the surface,
yeah.
and you gonna fall for it.
Hmm.
And that's what they did. Made it look legitimate by instituting paperwork, which is the paper chain. The more paperwork you try to do to get out the system, the deeper you dig yourself in the system.
I'm
All by design.
Yeah.
So basically, they've been trying to knock off. If they know your bloodline and they know it descended from chiefs, they come and they want to try to knock you off
Yep.
before you
They
able to
want
come back and.
yeah, they want you dead. Because they don't want none of us to wake up and tell the people. See, the obligation of the chief, any chief, is when he make a discovery that affect his clan, he tell the clan. And if a chief discovers something that affect the collective clans, it becomes of urgent importance to put it in the public domain so all of the rest of the chiefs on the land know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I don't care if people that disagree with me. Ain't no everybody not supposed to agree with me. Right? So I'm not gonna never get offended because somebody disagree. I'm
Right.
not a Moor, right? But I know the difference between a good Moor and a dirty Moor. Because Noble Drew Ali's literature told me, right? So because it's in the literature how to clearly identify these motherfuckers, I know who's who and what's what. But that's
Mm-hmm.
not my house. I'm from the Blue House. I'm from Growth and Development Nation.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have to clean that up. That's Angel Bay job to clean that shit up, right? That's him, T. Rogers, um, Taj. That's their job to clean that up. That's not my job. Only
Mm.
reason why I'm even mentioning them is because they the ones got infiltrated, right? So because the Red House got infiltrated and they changed the name from Amaru to Moore so that we can match them as Moray, we ain't the same motherfuckers.
Hold on. Can you go back? Say that all again.
So we are Amaru.
The
A-M.
Moricons. Is that what they? I think I heard somebody say Moricons or something at one time.
Look, Amaru is Amur. We used to call this land the Amur Inca, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they came over here and they was something called Moray, Mauri. The word Moor is a new word in the dictionary. It's not 500 years old. It's not older than Columbus's voyage to this land, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at it, it's going to take you to varying different etymological sources of the word because that's what you call a catch term. The catch term is used to group a group of people that don't match all under one banner so that you can deceive the ones who you're trying to deceive,
Okay.
right? So we not all Moors, but the tribes that the Moors infiltrated is the what we call righteous Moors, and the infiltrators is the ones we call the dirty Moors,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now I don't have to deal with them. That has not, like for instance, Jay Prince was having the issues with Whack 100. Jay Prince not supposed to say nothing to him. He supposed to go talk to his elders, his OGs. They sit his ass down and they tell him, nigga, you doing too much. And that's how we resolve that matter without causing a bloodbath on the land. Because all of the OGs know exactly what's going on the land. But if you don't know how Cali move, you won't know what Cali doing, right? But
Mm-hmm.
because I know the culture, I can read the culture, whether it's in California, New York, Miami, New Orleans, right? I can read Atlanta. I can read the culture. So I know where we at, and I know where the motherfucking imposters at. I know it wasn't no pale skinned motherfuckers that infiltrated the Nation of Islam. I know it wasn't no pale skinned motherfuckers that infiltrated the Moorish Science Temple. I know it wasn't no pale skinned motherfuckers that infiltrated the UNIA of Marcus Garvey, right? I know that it wasn't no pale skinned faces that slid under the bois, right? I know this because I'm watching the whole shit play out. And then they leaving clues in their literature. Remember, we ain't never supposed to learn nothing.
Exactly.
Miseducation of the Negro, Carter G.
Yeah.
Woodson, right? So what's the remedy from miseducation to education, right? Well, we can't let the enemy educate us and think we're going to use that shit to get free because he's never going to teach us what we need to know to overthrow him.
Yeah.
So we're going to always be bickering back and forth on a menial level. Right? All of the people that's coming out trying to attack Rod Hayes is the motherfuckers that don't know shit.
Thank
They
no
don't
shit.
know they look. They don't know they asshole from a